Video number 5 on the text analysis project at Iona College. This is more on the Federalist Papers. Federalist Papers are a prime example of how historians, with no fault of their own, for a lack of evidence, they have speculated on authorships of various important writings, and Federalist Papers are extremely important. The authors deliberately kept it obscure who wrote what and muddied the waters, which is very common for a lot of political writing projects in the 18th century. There are 3 articles that I want to make everyone aware of if you want to pursue this topic of Federalist Papers and using text analysis to sort it, because it's a major project. There's 85 of them, and we're analyzing them in detail, only a handful so far. There's an article in 57 by Ralph Ketchum on the notes on James Madison's sources for the 10th Federalist paper, and you should put James Madison in quotes there because it does not appear that he was the main writer. There's also something in 44 which is very worthwhile reading, authorship of disputed Federalist papers. Actually, I dispute all of them, but there's a few that, like a blind squirrel, they managed to get right. But it goes through the history of trying to figure out who wrote the Federalist Papers throughout the 19th century. And it's very interesting to show what lack of information they were going by to make their assumptions, and somehow they have written in stone the fact that there were only 3 writers, Madison, Hamilton, and Jay, which does not appear to be the case. And finally, in 87, Mosteller, from the Mosteller-Wallace pair, who started the computer analysis in the 60s, he finally wrote a paper summing up their findings based on function words, which is one feature of text analysis that we use out of the 17 that we're using. So with that in mind, and we'll refer to them as we go along here, I want to summarize our position here. The fundamental error of both historians and early computer analysts of text is that their assumptions are in error. They started with the faulty premise that collaborative writing was an exception and not the main mode of political compositions meant for the general public. Mosteller and Wallace began with the historical error that only Madison, Hamilton, and Jay were the writers of the Federalist Papers. As well, they assumed one author wrote each paper, and they pointed out to 3 of them that were admittedly by Hamilton and or Madison, that they were written jointly, not by them necessarily, but just written jointly. Turns out from a preliminary analysis of some of those 3, they were written neither by Hamilton or Madison, but that is a further paper. Both Hamilton and Madison were deliberately secretive about their authorships, as that article about the authorships I mentioned before, and historians had to piece together notes left to get clues as to possible authorship. This article by Adair, Authorship of Disputed Federalist Papers, makes a big case about linking certain phrases and ideas in, and also in Ketchum, to Madison having written certain pieces. Ketchum goes to this in great detail. He links up certain phrases in different writers that were used by Madison, and he attributes a couple of paragraphs in particular to Madison that turn out to be not Madison. So the advance in computer analysis, text analysis with a computer, is going to bring clarity to some of these historical issues that are very important. Okay. Federalist Paper 10. The same subject continued. The Union as a safeguard against domestic faction and insurrection has been attributed to Madison without question until now. We're questioning it. We start, like always, of going through all the possible authors that we know of. And again, like I said in previous videos, if the author is not present, we will be able to tell that by distribution of the graphs. Well, there are features of reading the graphs that will tell us that we're missing the author, and I've talked about that before. In this case, we have the authors. So when I compare the first 7, we get Hamilton way above anybody else, and no one gets more than 20%, which means he's a definite contributor to this paper. So right away, we have a problem. It's been attributed to Madison only. However, Madison is in the second group, the other 7. He comes in very strong as well, however, not as strong as Hamilton. Madison receives only 44% amongst these authors. Hamilton receives 60%. So I get an inkling that Hamilton has a stronger hand in the writing of this paper than Madison, but Madison seems to be present in some form. So let's match them up head to head and see what we get. We get overwhelmingly Hamilton, not Madison. You could almost say that Hamilton wrote this entire thing by himself because Madison only gets 25%. He could have contributed some. So we go, as always, when we have any kind of question, paragraph by paragraph. And right away, when we do paragraph 1, we see that Hamilton jumped up even higher than the overall, and Madison went down. This tells me probably that Madison wrote more in this than paragraph, coming up in other paragraphs, because originally he was at 27%, and now he's down to 20%. So this is just paragraph 1. He's only at 20%. So he might have some more paragraphs coming up, but still, you can see the domination of Hamilton in the opening paragraph, which is a crucial part of this, of any of the Federalist papers. So we can go through paragraph by paragraph. It becomes boring. Hamilton wrote paragraph 2. Paragraph 3 and 4, here's where Madison made an appearance. And we can go through all of these, but don't have the time. There's 23 paragraphs. So that was done meticulously. We're not done with it yet because there's a problem, and which we'll talk about in a minute. However, there's no doubt that we're dealing with 2 authors on this paper. So we put Hamilton in purple and we put Madison in yellow, and we're going to see what's what in the text. There are several paragraphs we left in black because they still need to be broken up, because it appears, because they're getting 50-50 on some paragraphs, each of them contributing half and half. We have to break it up into sentences. Some of these paragraphs are only single sentence, short sentence. So we need to start pairing, and pairing is a long, complicated process. Pairing up a sentence to the known authors, the possible known authors, and see if the percentages go up or down when you add a sentence to it. And I might do a video just on pairing coming up, and I'll use this article as a good example of that. Anyway, here is the color coding. This is what I left it like it's on the internet under the Federalist Papers that everybody uses, and it has James Madison as the author. But remember that purple is Hamilton, yellow is Madison. So you can tell the first long paragraph setting up the issue is Hamilton. As well, Hamilton also wrote Federalist Paper number 9, and when it says the same subject continue, it was his subject that he wrote Federalist 9, and it appears to be the sole writer of number 9. So this is an extension of that. And it could be because Madison had a few things to say on the subject, and they got together and continued the topic. Not together physically, but in correspondence. They could have been together. I haven't researched that part. So Hamilton's got the first 2 paragraphs. Second paragraph, short, but important. He's defining what a faction is and all that. So he sets it up. Then Madison comes in and writes 3 very short paragraphs. When we did grouping of paragraphs, we got these 3 as very strong with Madison, so we left it. Then the long, detailed paragraphs of the topic, again, Hamilton is writing them. So you can see the extent of his writing to Hamilton, but it's a long essay, but this does continue. Now, the black paragraphs have not been broken down. You can see this paragraph is just one sentence. And within a paragraph like these, together or separately, just one paragraph, we're getting 50-50 results for Hamilton and Madison, which means we have to separate these sentences. One person, I assume it's Hamilton, might have sent the draft to Madison, and then, or they could have sat down together, and Madison might have added pieces to this, and he might have added sentences in between Hamilton's words or after or before. So it's difficult unsorting issues like that in collaboration, which is common when two or more people are writing an essay together. Then it goes back to Hamilton, unknowns, two short ones. Madison makes his return on 2 paragraphs, and a long Hamilton, and we're done. This particular paragraph right here, one of those authors, the author who wrote the article on Federalist paper number 10 above, Ketchum, he used this as an example of Madison taking the same language on the same topic in a correspondence. So he tried to use that as a proof that this is Madison. But we have just a strong presence of Hamilton in this paragraph. So both might be true. Madison did not write this whole paragraph, but he could have written a piece that turned out to be used in correspondence as well. So you can see the complexity of breaking these things down when you have collaboration. And it all depends as well on the political philosophy involved here. You need to have a firm understanding of the political philosophy of Hamilton and Madison to see how it fits with what the text analysis is saying, or if it contradicts it. If it's one paragraph that they're both present in, you might be able to help sort it out by the political philosophy involved in that paragraph. And that takes a longer study that we're not prepared to do at this point. We're just doing the text analysis side. Again, there's 3 aspects to doing an analysis of a work. There's calculation, which is the text analysis that I just did and showed you the results. There is also content, which is the key issue. Is the content fit with the other writings of this author that's identified by text analysis? And the third is context. Were they together when they wrote this? Were they separately? Did I have enough time to correspond by mail to finish these writings? How did this get done if it was a collaboration? So all 3 things are necessary to do a complete analysis. This is only the calculation portion. And you can't jump from this to make a definitive statement unless you do the other 2 aspects. But we can say you cannot disregard the calculation because it's the only objective piece here. This is objective. We know that no human is tilting the evidence here. This is a computer-generated and a very accurate method that I've shown in previous videos, that the computer does not go far off. It might go off in a percentage or 2 here and there, but it's not going to make a huge mistake like this. So that's my summary of Federalist paper number 10 for now, and we're going to get back to this in the future, and I hope this helps.